China was the last stop of the president's Far East tour. Even though he left Singapore in the morning, he had to make an hour-long stopover in Manila. Eventually, he arrived at Beijing in the night. And despite the cold temperature, there was this group of placard-waving Ghanaians ready to receive him. The president's first engagement in China was a meeting with President Jiang Zemin at the Great Hall of the People. The discussions between the two leaders centered on bilateral relations and the need to raise them to higher levels.
According to our customs and also out of respect for our distinguished guests that have arrived, that have come from afar, we would like to give the floor to Your Excellency first.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. The privilege and the honor of this visit comes as no surprise, seeing the historical relationship that has always existed between Ghana and China. It goes for a very long way, since our very first republic under Dr. Harlan Truman. And even though his demise up to this certain point in time has gone through its trials and tribulations, our healthy relationship has been restored.
The next meeting was with the chairman of the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress, Mr. Kiao Shi. Mr. Kiao was in Ghana 30 years ago when Sino-Ghana relations were at their peak.
I personally had the pleasure to visit your country 30 years ago. At that time, President Nkrumah was still alive. And I was accorded a very warm reception at that time.
That's right.
So we are all friends, aren't we?
He was a man well ahead of his time.
是，他是一个超越他所在时代的一个人，就是恩克鲁玛总统。
And I must take this opportunity to thank the Chinese government that came to our assistance when we had to rebuild.
The third meeting with a member of the Chinese hierarchy was with the Prime Minister, Mr. Li Peng. He was happy at the political stability in Ghana. After this meeting, members of the President's delegation were split to enable them to hold discussions with their Chinese counterparts on one-on-one basis. The various discussions culminated in the signing of two agreements between Ghana and China. The first agreement was for a soft loan of 150 million yuan, or $17.8 million. The amount will be used to support joint venture projects involving the private sector. The government of Ghana will be required to identify the industries which will benefit from the loan. The second agreement is for a grant of 2 million yuan, or $250,000. The amount will be used to purchase items of Ghana's choice to support development projects. The Deputy Minister of Finance, Mr. Victor Solomon, signed for Ghana, while the Chinese Vice Minister of Foreign Trade and Economic Cooperation, Mr. Liu Shanzai, signed for his country. In the 1980s, China modified its rigid central planning policy and decided to open the country to foreign investors. The stress was on market-oriented socialism. That policy has started yielding dividends. All the provinces have established economic and technological development areas which serve as the equivalent of industrial-free zones. And while in Beijing, the President visited the office of the Beijing Economic Technological Development Area, BDA. The Director of the General Office, Madame Guo, and Mr. Ma Ling, Vice Director of BDA, took turns to brief him.
This is a national level development area approved by the State Council. This development area is designed to be one new growth point for Beijing and will be a new city. Surrounding Beijing in the 21st century, it has enjoyed the support and care from the State Council and various departments since the first day of preparation. This area, or rather its development, has been incorporated in the overall city planning of Beijing.
这个位置是北京2010年总体规划发展的卫星城镇之一。
And it has been designed as one of the several satellite cities of Beijing by the time 2010.
Is this the only project pilot project you have for the whole of China, or this is going to take place in virtually every province?
Altogether, we have 32 national grade development areas, and this one is the 31st one.
The 31st?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thinking about cost recovery, how do you pay for the initial cost of development?
The BDA has attracted investors from the United States, Japan, Germany, Britain, Italy, the Netherlands, and Australia. These companies produce high-tech and high-quality value-added goods for export and for the domestic markets. One of the companies which the president toured was the Walls Ice Cream Company, a joint venture between Unilever and Walls. Beijing has a large concentration of universities and research institutions, and foreign companies which set up in the big BAs would benefit from a large pool of highly skilled personnel. The BDA have made sure that no one who works in the BDA would have accommodation problems. Provision has been made for 150,000 families. Also, a number of schools which will cater for the children of the international clientele have been set up. The president and his team later met Ghanaian students at the Ghana Embassy in Beijing. After the formal welcoming ceremonies, the stage was set for frank discussions.
We learned from the political stability and the enabling economic environment in Ghana, which have been achieved by your government. We are also excited by your personal efforts to sell Ghana abroad, besides the exceptional tolerance on your part in the face of provocation from those at home who do not yet understand the vision you have. It is our prayer that before long, that understanding and the unity which should bind us together as one nation of one people with a single destiny will come. We, on our part, are extremely encouraged by all this to return home as soon as our studies are done to contribute to the progress made. We therefore pledge never to desert and go elsewhere, to pursue only our personal interests when duty so loudly calls us home. Your Excellency, the First Lady, the Ambassador of Ghana to China, Honorable Ministers of State, distinguished personalities. Our stay and studies in China, unfortunately, have not been without some difficulties. Chief among them have been financial. Up to now, our monthly stipend has been $120 US, but inflationary rate trend in China have naturally reduced the value of our stipend much below what it could do for us 2 years ago. We will be extremely grateful if Your Excellency would use your offices to improve this amount to assuage some of our financial predicament.
If there is high inflation here, I expect that to translate into depreciation of the currency, the yuan. Therefore, the exchange rate between the yuan and the dollar must fall. So for the same dollar, you must be getting more yuan to spend. That is not what economics says. But anyhow, right. So really, I'm placing myself to learn about the exceptions to this rule so that I can better understand the issue. But that is the non-serious side. On the serious side, it is usual that from time to time we assess the world trend, price differentials elsewhere, and make appropriate adjustments. You must recall that in making this adjustment, we have to take many other factors into consideration. For instance, the allowance paid to students elsewhere at home and so forth and so on. And besides, we have to also factor the ability of the economy to deal with the situation. But the bottom line is that we never want our students anywhere to become destitute, that to affect their own education and to bring their personal esteem low and impact on the esteem of the country. So I'm sure that you have made a case for a review of your allowances. We have received similar applications from other students from other parts of the world. It is usual and customary for us towards the end of the year when we are adjusting the budgets to look at what adjustments we must make to this to conform to the normal trends. So provided you have presented the letter, you have justified it, I will offer myself as a courier to take it back home, discuss this with the Scholarship Adjustment Committee, and I'm sure that I'll be present to be an advocate for you.
We know that with the support of well-meaning Ghanaians who know that for us to move forward, we have to make sacrifices. That we have to endure a little bit of pain, which we are going through. Ghanaians who know that they have a government which is making sacrifices, which is showing the way, and which is determined not to be discouraged by temporary difficulties that we may be facing, but to stay the course that we will succeed.
The average Ghanaian must have an unlimited access to food. In other words, food security is basic to the sustainable development of our economy. For this reason, we have resolved and indeed planned to move from the hoe and machete technology to mechanization with irrigation to boot wherever possible. We have been flagging this idea wherever we've been, right from the US through Malaysia and Singapore to this place. And I must say that the central role of agriculture, particularly food, in development has been acknowledged by all. And in China in particular, we have initiated discussions to get some of our Chinese-built irrigation projects rehabilitated and given a sound commercial management. We've also been talking about the possibility of investigating the aquaculture, that's fish farming, shrimp farming potential of the Keta Lagoon area. We're talking about investigating the irrigation potential along the White Volta Basin, the Ashanti BA corridor from Tepa towards Achirensua and other areas over there. And then opening up the Accra Plains for irrigation. We are doing all this in order to cushion ourselves against the vagaries of the weather. You know that whenever rainfall is a bit short, then food production also falls. Similarly, we've also recognized the positive correlation between agricultural development and infrastructure development. And so we've been flagging investments in road infrastructure in particular in order to cheapen marketing of inputs and farm produce.
Ladies and gentlemen, today when coming to Ghana, you can virtually buy anything and everything that you can find in Europe in Ghana. It's not government that buys it. We don't practice the old foreign exchange practices anymore, like in the Chambon or prior to that regime, where you go and buy it. You see what I mean? At the Bank of Ghana. We freed the value of that foreign exchange. So in any forex bureau, you can go and buy it. The market forces will now determine so that we don't have two parallel values, one being well above the other, which means you can go into the Bank of Ghana, buy a pound for maybe 2 cedis or 1.5 cedis and go and sell it for 5 cedis or go and sell it for 20 or 100 cedis and things like that. So let's have one common value. In effect, ladies and gentlemen, since we don't control that aspect of it anymore, Today, anything that you find in our shops is not provided by government, it's provided by all the traders and the shopkeepers, the manufacturers that you find around Ghana. How do they do it? They use their savings to buy whatever foreign exchange is available. In other words, whoever offers more money, it's auction, whoever offers more money is the one who buys the foreign exchange. Naturally, when he buys his goods, he will increase the price of that toilet roll, the price of this item, the price of that drug, the price of this, etc. It's so unfortunate that we cannot stabilize the value of the saving. So here again, if we cannot learn to provide that toilet roll back at home and use our own local toilet roll, eat our own maize, provide enough maize to eat our own locally made chocolate, eat our own whatever it is, and we have to eat these foreign imported items, ladies and gentlemen, those things are being chased after by very rare foreign exchange. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it's not government. It's the consumerist attitude that we're beginning to develop. When we didn't have it, we were sad and angry, empty shops. Today we have it, and we can't quite understand why we can't buy it, and we turn around again and we blame government.
The president also met with African ambassadors in Beijing. He was not happy with the apparent inability of Africa to manage its affairs despite a huge natural and human resources.
Today we're caught up in a situation where we suffer a huge volume of brain drain. Intellectuals who are educated at the expense of our people and yet cannot stay at home. And for those of us who stay back at home and make the necessary sacrifices to lay the foundation for the economic and the political solidity of our country, could we have done better than we've done so far? Ladies and gentlemen, modernization is taking place everywhere. We cannot be looking for primitive solutions. We have the resources on our continent. We have the intellectuals, provided we can keep them at home on the continent and not to escape into the so-called developed countries. With all these resources that have been used to enrich other countries, sadly, in their raw forms, when they could have been processed way down the line to exact the most, and the technicians, the question I keep on asking myself, how come that we cannot, act in concert and to be able to put these energies, the capacities and abilities that we find on this continent together to be able to derive the maximum out of our resources, both human and material.
Before leaving Beijing, President Rawlings toured vegetable fields at Chongqing township near Beijing. The Chinese capital has a very severe winter, which is capable of either stifling or totally destroying vegetable production. The farmers of Chongqing, therefore, use greenhouses to protect their vegetables from the vagaries of the weather. The president also visited an old people's home at Chongqing. Most of the inmates at the home are beyond 70. The Chinese government placed a Boeing 737 jet at the disposal of the president while he was in China, and he moved from one province to the other in the plane. From Beijing, the presidential delegation moved to Chongqing in southwest China. He was received by the mayor, Mr. Liu Zhizhong. Chongqing is the most populous of the Chinese provinces with 200 million people. Chongqing has a proud history. It was China's capital during the Second World War, and that was where Premier Zhou Enlai had his mansion. Chongqing has not been left out in the development effort. Many foreign businessmen have invested in the city. As at the end of 1993, 1,316 foreign-funded enterprises had been set up. And among the industries which President Rawlings visited was the Chongqing Yuanling Food Company. The company processes 300 tons of wheat a month. Using a complete production line imported from Japan, the flour mill produces fast-cooking noodles. Even though Ghana has up to 3 flour mills, they concentrate on producing flour for the bread and pastry industry alone. And local companies spend huge sums of money promoting a Maggi brand of noodles imported from Malaysia. The discussion among the president's group turned to the need for Ghanaians to adopt time-saving methods of food preparation. The attitude of fufu-eating Ghanaians to locally produced fufu powder products was also discussed. The last city the president visited was Shenzhen in the south of China. The mayor of the city is Mr. Li Zibin.
This way, please. This way, sir.
On behalf of the 3.5 million Shenzhen people, I am very honored to welcome Your Excellency to Shenzhen. You see, Mrs. Rawlings, a small gift for you. It's locally made silk.
Like Deng Xiaoping said, do it without allowing some of the mice and the rats to come in. Otherwise you'll have a problem.
就像这个邓小平先生所说的，不管是白猫黑猫，只要能抓老鼠。
感谢您的美好的祝愿，祝加纳共和国繁荣昌盛。
Thank you for your very best wishes, and I also wish Ghana enjoy prosperity.
We're doing our best, and we will. Let me teach you.
想让您打开看一看。
Wooden carving.
他们的出色的工匠雕刻。
非常精美呀，做的。
Very delicate, very beautiful.
Oh, please price it. You know, it's done by someone. It's ebony. It's the hardest wood and the most long-lasting wood that you can find on the continent.
Shenzhen has become one of the showcases of China in the policy to reform and open up the country to external investment. 15 years ago, Shenzhen was a small township of mostly fishermen and had a population of 32,000. The tallest building at that time were only 4 stories high. Today, the city is highly developed. It has more than 600 buildings, which are more than 18 stories high. There are nearly 100 main highways and a number of flyovers in Shenzhen. Perhaps the most significant aspect of the road network is the operation of toll booths on some of the highways. They serve as important avenues of revenue generation. The telephone system is well developed with about 672,000 telephones in use. There are more than 70,000 mobile telephones, 600,000 pages, and more than 1,000 card phone booths in operation.
喂，停转这个24072704找外事办的。
Shenzhen is adjacent to Hong Kong, and it is taking advantage of the developed market of that territory. As part of the opening up policy, it has attracted more than 15,000 foreign-funded joint venture projects. The companies which the president and his team visited was the Kaifa Technological Company. Kaifa is a high-tech, export-oriented, medium-sized enterprise that specializes in electronic products. As at last year, Shenzhen's import and export volume stood at $34.983 billion, with exports recording $18.309 billion.
The second floor products into second floor manufacture for this and head assemble.
然后呢？
开发 on top of it.
开发。
The president also toured the Shenzhen Industrial Exhibition Hall. The hall has on display a collection of goods produced by over 600 enterprises and manufacturers of the city.
Shenzhen industrial products are mainly for export. Over 60% of the products are for export. And in 1994, the export value reached 34 billion RMB. Brings investment reached 1.7 billion US dollars. And now Hong Kong is our biggest investor, and Taiwan ranks second. Our own motorcycle. This is the production line was introduced. US dollar is about 2,000 US dollars.
That's factory.
Yeah. No. Yeah. That's factory. That's factory. Optical fiber and cable.
You do it here.
Yeah.
You have a factory doing it.
From a Sino-Canadian company.
I see.
The president and his team later met a group of Chinese entrepreneurs who are interested in Ghana. The president set the tone for the meeting.
The one weakness a good number of us are beginning to recognize in European financial markets is that a few too many of them are becoming speculative. And yet, the one solid foundation that is being laid in the Asian economy is that your financial investments are beginning to take root for long-term developments. And this is something that coincides with our own needs. So that in coming to visit a country like China, it's not for ceremonial or for diplomatic purposes, but to see which areas of economic activity that we can jointly take for our mutual benefit, so that we're not left as victims of the old and the new speculative ventures that are taking place today.
The economic growth we have recorded essentially have resulted from the reforms that we have achieved in the area of macroeconomics. But we do not believe that we have exhausted our potential. In spite of the fact that Ghana has been recording an annual economic growth rate of about 4 to 5% per annum, we do not believe that that is where we should be, even though this is much higher than the average GDP growth rate of 2.2% for sub-Saharan African countries as an average. The reasons we can't remain where we are many. One of them is that at 4 to 5% GDP growth rate, and a population growth rate of slightly above 3%, there's only little left for investment and consumption growth rate. And it is consumption growth rate that will eliminate poverty.
Before leaving China, the president toured the Splendid China Miniature Scenic Spot. Splendid China is a comprehensive miniature scenic area which reflects the history, culture, art, as well as the customs and habits of the various nationalities in China.
贵州的布依寨以为第一部落城市的农活历史景色，用山皮茅草构成的，楼的两端有尖煞梯，实际上只提到门后是最称美观的装饰工作，是名副其实的。
Back to that time, the carpenters prepared all the materials at the foot of the mountain. They sent everything to the top.
之間長兒童集體大，從流別角嚟空嚟飛，一眼望過去，只係用無數睇唔見嘅絲線將變每片時候，隨下巴清風淡下，佢係天下獨標。
The visitor to Splendid China gets a chance to see at a glance the 5,000-year history of China. And to mark the visit, President Rawlings and the First Lady Nana Kunedu planted a tree in Splendid China.
Wow.
我们的演出到此结束，感谢您的光临。
The visit over, the president made his way back home, but he had to make another stopover in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. And while he was holding discussions with Saudi officials, members of his delegation were meeting with Ghanaians resident in the Saudi kingdom.
We've been away from Ghana for varying periods of time, and this has only been in body but not in spirit. Occasionally, unflattering remarks are made in our direction, and phrases like economic migrants and greener pastures come to mind. But it would be better, and we plead to the delegation and His Excellency the President, to regard us all as potential Tetequashis, to import into Ghana this time not cocoa, but ideas, skills, knowledge, and of course capital, all essential for development. Matters of interest to us range from the latest developments in our dear country to what participation in national affairs is possible for us whilst temporarily away from home. The dual citizenship debate, or debate to be, interests us greatly. For most of us believe that the Kweja Agres of today and tomorrow will benefit from this privilege. I need not elaborate on Agres' contribution to our country to this audience. We have been impressed by the overall progress made in various fields in the country in the past decade. I'm referring to Ghana. And here I need to point out that it's a lot easier to make the necessary comparisons between the achievements of nations and to take note of changes for the better in one's country when one's had the opportunity to travel abroad and make the assessment firsthand.
The policy of government is in favor of dual citizenship. I think it's important for me to state that outright. The government is in favor of dual citizenship. Just for a quick historical perspective, you'll remember that when the draft constitution was presented to a consultative assembly, that, in a sense, reflected government's views, the then PNDC, on a number of issues, including on dual citizenship. And it recommended that we should have dual citizenship. In other words, that a new constitution should allow for Ghanaians to have dual citizenship. That was rejected by the Consultative Assembly. Since the coming into force of the new constitution, I think it is now evident that that was one area in which perhaps the Consultative Assembly did not decide rightly for Ghanaians. And we believe that the consensus in Ghana now is for dual citizenship. So I can just tell you that at the appropriate time, when certain revisions come to be made in the Constitution, this is certainly one of the issues that government will advocate to have changed, to allow Ghanaians to hold their citizenship and at the same time be able to acquire other citizenship. It is not a decision of the government whether or not Ghanaians outside are registered. It is a decision of the Electoral Commission, which is under the Constitution an autonomous body. But having said that, let me also say that the government is in favor of registration of Ghanaians who are living outside. So should the Electoral Commission, an independent agency under the Constitution, decide to register Ghanaians, it will certainly have the backing of the government, and it will certainly have at its disposal Ghanaian embassies and other offices that come under the direct control of the government. Now, some people have problems about that, and I think you should know about that. Suspect that maybe you can use embassies, but if you don't use embassies, you may really just have difficulty. How are you going to properly register Ghanaians living outside? This is one of the issues that you should be aware of, so that those who say, well, okay, register Ghanaians outside, but we can't be sure that you should use embassies, may just be working themselves into a very difficult situation.
I was in Ghana in July this year and I experienced electricity shortage. And my question is, would any investor come and invest in the country if the electricity and water supply systems are not reliable? Of course, I know in certain parts of Kumasi they are rationing electricity. And if I, as an investor, has to face shortages of electricity like every day or every week, that will mean I will lose production, or maybe I might have my goods going bad because there's no refrigeration system to keep the goods, cool. And I'd like to know what kind of plans that the government had in place to make sure that electricity is 99.9% available all the time. Because I think that's part of an infrastructural development that any government will have to put in place to sustain growth in the economy.
Our two main sources of power are the Akosomo and then the Akuse Dam, all of them on the Volta River. And one produces 918 megawatts, while the smaller one produces 160 megawatts. When we started, we had very low industrial activity. So we had to even beg VACO to come here and set up the smelter so that they can consume more for us to get the revenue so we can pay back. Because many of the countries, many of the industries were producing their own power at that time. Today, we have about 8 new mines coming from Australia, from New Zealand, from Canada, from America, and many more are in the pipeline. And mining activity is energy intensive. So that has sapped all the reserves of the energy. Now the load increase has outstripped our anticipated level. But as if that was not enough, because of our commitment to social justice, we have decided that all the villages and towns must also enjoy power so that they can improve their conditions of living, they can have television for information and education, we can even service hospitals for vaccines and whatever. They can set up small village industries if we make power available. That has also increased the domestic power consumption. If you put the industrial and the domestic together, we have increased the total power demand. And that has brought a deficit on our power installation. But we knew that we have to augment it. So today, 2 projects are running concurrently. A lot of activities are taking place in the energy sector. And that is all being done so that we can supply all investors with their power and still be able to supply both the city dwellers and the village dwellers their share of power for their domestic and other activities.